Welcome back from that break. This is Family Hour. We are looking at the role of discipline and consistency in making a good leader. Before the break, there is something that Dr. Patricia had talked about consistency, and it reminded me a story I had from a friend who works somewhere. He was telling me about their boss, and he tells me, um, we have uh, we have a routine that the moment we start work at exactly 8, we have a devotion. But boss is always in his office. The only time you see him come for the devotion, then there is something wrong. And that is how they know him about. So one time he shocked them that he came and was part of the devotion. Even when they requested him to say something, he didn't. He said, "Thank you so much for coming," and left. And up to that, he was telling me, up to that time, he told me the story. They were still asking themselves, why had he come that day?
He possibly had a problem.
Why had he come in that particular devotional meeting? But I mean, talking about consistency and discipline, what are some of the challenges that befall people who are not consistent in the way they do things? Dr. Patricia is saying that when people are able to predict what is coming next, now perhaps my friend says, that one comes and goes to the office, but he supervises you from there. Are they praying? Probably on the CCTV cameras. Are they praying? He never attends. Each time, the only time he comes, once a month or twice a month, you just say there is something wrong. He's just coming to let you know that there's something wrong. But should we all call that is how he has consistently built his brand, or is that his way of doing things? And should the system have that as a leader?
That's an interesting question because it actually goes to the root of leadership. If you come to the office and you decide to stay away from the people, who are you leading? Who are you influencing? Who are you impacting? You can lead people from a closed door. People don't see you. They don't hear from you. They don't interact with you. They only receive emails about what's going to happen. And so because leadership in itself is influence, and many people have positions of leadership but are not leaders. And so because of that dynamic that we suffer in the workplace, it's important to distinguish that a leader is a leader and a boss is not a leader necessarily. And so one of the things that you're going to suffer from someone like that is that there's going to be a disconnect between you and the people that you're leading. The moment you start to see that disconnect between the now boss and the people that you're leading, you're going to introduce what you call a toxic environment and a place full of strife. Because we are listening to rumors now. The first person that comes up with a rumor, it's going to go down grapevine, and then it will change, the story will change. By the time it reaches the gatekeeper, everyone will think they're fired. And so you created a toxic environment that doesn't help anybody. And so it stems from the fact that you are failing to stand up as a leader. So in your example, the one that you have given, that's a very dangerous way that any boss, I would say not say leader, that any boss can take. As not many people are comfortable with having people in their presence. Some people, it takes a bit of a while for people to get used to people, get used to their presence. Some people, they call such people not natural born leaders, but not necessarily. It may just be a personality defect and also the way that they were brought up, that they are struggling to bring the inner leader out into such a space. So something like that, it means that there's a lot of training and coaching that's needed to bring the person to the place that they want to be. So what are some of the defects that you're going to suffer from lack of discipline? Is that you'll create a toxic environment for people. People will not want to work. Your turnover is going to become higher than it has been. Every toxic environment, and this is how leaders should check, every toxic environment has a really high turnover. It has a turnover 6 months, 2 months, 1 year, and even sometimes 3 years is usually people's turnover. Businesses that keep turning over every 3 years. that shows you that there is some people don't see room for growth, they don't see room for improvement, and so they would rather go to a place where their mental health can be catered for, as opposed to sitting in a place where they don't understand. Well, you can't come to work every day wondering, do I have a job, do I not have a job? My work is dependent on if the boss likes me or if the boss doesn't like me. And sadly, that's the reality of what we have, especially where you have people who give work based on how they feel. Today I'm in good books with Edwin, tomorrow I'm in good books with Dr. Patricia. This week Dr. Patricia has work, next week Edwin has work. I know people who have come for counseling and they speak about it, and people usually tell them that people's consolation to them in their workplace is just that it is your week. It will come, it will pass. But that's what you're creating, a toxic environment, because your lack of discipline shows lack of boundaries, shows lack of defined way of doing things. Remember, discipline is about order, structure, priority. When you remove that, what you're creating is chaos. Yeah, and I can't help but think about the Genesis scripture, the opening that says, in the beginning, the earth was void and empty, and the Holy Spirit was hovering, but there was chaos, that void and emptiness. Every time you see void and emptiness, something is going to fill it. Every time you see a void and there's an emptiness, something is going to fill it. And what was hovering over the Holy Spirit was hovering over the earth, but darkness had filled the void. And so that's what you do as a leader. The distancing yourself from the people is creating such an environment for toxicity to enter. And it doesn't help you. Eventually now you'll have the second tier of those problems, which is you don't have results. People are not performing the way they expect to. Your turnover becomes quite high. You can't sell a vision to anyone. Nobody believes in your vision. Clients stop coming. You're not able now to turn things around for people. And then you have people fighting amongst one another. People begin to fight amongst one another. And now everyone will want to be your friend as the leader, your friend and that friend. But all that is created from weak leadership. All that is created because you are not disciplined enough and strong enough to set the pace from the beginning. The very nature of discipline is that you set the pace from the beginning. You tell people this is the standard by which we are going to work. When you withhold that from people, you create a void and emptiness that can only be filled by darkness. And so you're going to have a result of all those things you didn't cultivate, but they will grow.
Wow. Dr. Patricia, I see you nodding your head.
I'm just thinking about people who take decisions out of emotions because of the way they feel. But a leader who is disciplined makes well thought out decisions based on principles and not just emotions and how they feel. Because when you look at some of the decisions taken out today, you realize that even consistency in decision making helps to build confidence among the people, among the leaders, among the people who are his followers, among the teams he is leading. And he also ensures reliability, especially in respect to the framework for addressing various issues within the organization. But many are leaders out there who do not exhibit this discipline and consistency, and they act and take decisions basing on the emotions. If somebody is not their friend, they cannot let them do certain things. If somebody is their friend, so you find that the followers are struggling to win this favor, like the example Diana has just shared. So I think discipline and consistency should also help us maybe look at it in terms of adopting to change. Because while consistency is important for the leader, it's also important for us to adopt to changing circumstances. Sometimes leadership changes. Like I have told you, my Chisanja is about to get finished. I'm left with only 1.5 years to go. So leadership is bound.
For the first term.
The 4 years.
The first term. So it's not your Chisanja. It's the first term, then the next term.
So let me run my Chisanja. So discipline basically provides that solid foundation for making influential adjustments throughout the organization in order to to build the core values of the organization in order to advance the mission of the organization, in order to carry the mandate of the organization. It really needs discipline and consistency. Because if we act by emotions, then we get derailed from the mandate, from the core values, from what we have as what should be the driving force behind. It is like this ship moving without the rudder. And yet the rudder is very important. It shows direction. That is why we have the lighthouses. So the leader, look at the leader as that lighthouse, showing the ship direction and where to go. But if that rudder is not there, then the ship will go astray.
Yeah.
So I think discipline and consistency is really, really important in leadership, and we need to encourage leaders out there to be disciplined and consistent in terms of taking decisions, key decisions that affect the day-to-day operations in their institutions or organizations.
Doctor, there is something that Diana talked about, something to do with results, but you also talked about something about accountability and responsibility. I want you to help us relate discipline and consistency in line with results. How they bring in results at the end of the day. Because someone would say, I've set maybe a standard, and so they can do whatever they want. After all, the principles at workplace in operation. For example, everyone is supposed to come at 8, sign in, and then leave at 5. So whether the leader has the discipline, the traits of discipline and consistency or not, we may think that the principles set in the system will help move the entire institution.
I will give you an example with my own experience in terms of results. I am the leader of certain dockets within the IG. Like I supervise legal, projects, and leadership code. And my responsibility is to be able to track progress and look at the results. How do I do this? Continuously engaging with my directors for feedback, continuously engaging with them and tagging along with them, sometimes even to the field, to ensure that we are seeing output. Tagging along with them and following up. For every charge sheet I sign, I make sure I follow to see where it is ending. Are we obtaining a conviction? What level of prosecution have we gotten at? And so on. So I think discipline and consistency, like I said earlier on, is a very, very significant aspect, especially in creating that culture of accountability and also responsibility and professionalism. Because as professionals like the lawyers, there is something we look at the end of the day, which we call our output. Am I building or making jurisprudence? Am I inspiring other lawyers to want to be what I am? Do they admire some of the things we do? And when we go consistently and foster the strict adherence to the principles set, you find that we are able to come up with a tone for expected behavior and foster a positive work environment as well. In terms of output, because of the accountability aspect, the person I'm supervising will be keen on achieving the targets. Because we set targets. We say in this quarter, we should be able to have achieved ABCD. So that means the person I'm supervising, the director or the manager, will be working towards that. At the end of the quarter, we are sitting to tick and say, this was achieved, and sometimes they even go beyond the target set because of the discipline and consistency we have set out. Because disciplined leaders basically are keen to following up, to helping, holding them by the hand and say, let's move together and do this. Together we can make it, we can move from one level to another. So I think in terms of results, a disciplined leader is result-oriented. We look at the results, we look at the achievements, and the achievements of the individual or the directorate is the achievement of the overall institution. And that is the reason why we encourage teamwork. teamwork so that we can be able to move very far. But a person who wants to move fast, of course, moves alone. And they can kutomera. They can kutomera along the way. But if you move as a team, then there is collective ownership. And you're able to move very far. And it becomes very easy. My work becomes so easy because the directors know that these are the standards this person has set. She wants her work like this. And they're even able to come up with new innovative ways of moving. If work has become boring, we then think about new innovative ways of making work interesting. For instance, when we purpose to celebrate every conviction, of course some people are crying because we have obtained a conviction. We purpose in the directorate to celebrate and cake is cut and we say, yes, this is just for one conviction. It means a lot. So as a leader, that inspires. If a member of staff in your docket has a birthday, and you show up as a deputy IGG, it is a big motivation. The person the following week will be coming to office at 6:30. You come at 7, you find they're already there because there is that motivation. So I think with discipline and consistency, we are able to motivate our teams to move with confidence because they know that the institution believes and trusts them and needs them to do work. So they are able to adopt to the tone we set for them in the institution. Yes.
I think I should be invited each time you're celebrating convictions as a well-wisher. Not celebrated.
Yes.
As a well-wisher.
Yes, we will definitely. Yes. One time arrange.
Bribery is ongoing.
Is that bribery?
No, Edwin will come for purposes of covering the
Exactly,
that you know
yes.
this is an achievement in
Yes.
a way.
Then at 2-0. Well, talking about discipline and consistency, I mean, it is an eye-opener to someone, and it is an individual check to see how they are running, maybe, and probably it could be something that has been hindering results in the entire institution, in the entire system. So someone would ask Diana, how can I cultivate discipline and consistency as a leader? I mean, what are some of the things that they can do, or how can they shift from wherever they've been and now consistently start leaning onto what they're supposed to do?
I think the most obvious one is to model it as a leader. Because you have to model the kind of behavior you want people to emulate. You can't say something and then do something else and expect people to fall in line. And so if you say that the culture of our environment is that people report at 8, it's a hard-working environment. While we have flexible hours there and the leaving time is 5, if you have extra time and extra work that can be done, we stretch a little bit. You can't now pack your bags at 3 and then go to and then go home and expect everybody to stay and lock up at 8 or at 7. And so what you model for people is what they're going to emulate. And so what the leader needs to do is to first walk the walk before you talk. Make sure that people are seeing it in your life so that they can model it. And when they see consistency in your discipline, they will become like you. And many times you don't have to say much. You see a lot of YouTube videos where you see young toddlers, very young children imitating anger, throwing adults out of the room. And of course it's funny, people make comments about it, but that's learned behavior. And so if a toddler as young as 2, 3 can imitate adult behavior in such a way that they exhibit strong emotions, how much more an adult? And so you have to walk the walk in such a way that people begin to emulate you. The second one is you have to train. Discipline itself is a learned skill. It's really a learned skill. It comes by putting structures in place, by defining the vision for people, and then also putting measures for if you don't meet it, right? And so because of that, you need to train people. all of us are conditioned. I think there's the book that has been done that says that it takes 21 days to create a habit. And because it takes 21 days to create a habit, you can create disciplining people. It takes 21 days. How consistent can you be for 21 days and days after that to create a habit of disciplining the people that you want to follow? And so when you bring on board people who are very skilled and understand this very well, when you inculcate it in your principles and policies, when you begin to do these things, you are training your employees to come towards, to come up higher, to come to the level of discipline that you expect, that you uphold. And so it's important that you never neglect that. The third one, which the third and fourth are more or less similar, and it's very difficult one because people are adults. People are adults, and so you need to take that dynamic in your stride, because where people fail is what you call punishment. And so that the third and fourth are really about punishment and also rewards, right? And so you will see that if you do, the books of Parliament provide you don't appear for a certain level of sittings, you are now sent for answering to a certain place. You can argue, I'm an adult, I'm busy doing other things, there are many things to do. But in truth, punishment is a motivator for people to become disciplined. It's a very big motivator, because naturally as human beings, we want to be in discipline. Everybody wants to do what they want at a certain time. Have you seen how Ugandans drive on the roads?
Yeah.
Apart from if you have a lead car. So Ugandans drive on the roads in such a way.
And even with someone with a lead car, other vehicles will come following. The one
Of
with
course,
the lead
right
car.
behind.
Yes.
So it's if you see, it's a culture that this country has learned that they need to get rid of. Because everybody feels that they are suffering through jam, but you'll find it's just that two people can't let each other pass. The other person wants to go, the other person wants to go. It's a T-junction, has locked up a gridlock of cars. Why? Indiscipline. Indiscipline. Indiscipline is the biggest, I think for me, is the biggest detriment to this country. Everybody is indisciplined. When I see police cars on the pavement crossing over, indiscipline. Army cars doing the same, indiscipline. You want to run lights. I see police feel that they can also run lights along with borders, and borders, my God. That level of indiscipline is what is very costly. And so how do we treat that? When someone has gone beyond a place of training, we need to instigate punishment. Punishment for your actions, because every action has a consequence. It should have a consequence. Same as every sin has a consequence, right? Whether God punishes you or not, there is still a consequence for your sin. So an action, opposite reaction. When you see such a level of indiscipline, it needs to be dealt with. Now, I know that there are schools of thought that do not like the idea of punishment or rewards, and I can understand by the argument that it's free contract, free entry, free exit. We agreed to this and before people are adults, treat them as adults. We're all working for a unified purpose. I understand that school of thought. But when your behavior is so detrimental to our workplace that we can't keep up with it, it's either punishment or we remove you. And so even if, there are trees that grow and they grow bent. Yeah? Children grow and they grow bent. Now, your child is still stealing at 27. When they ban him on the street, you need to be responsible. Your 40-year-old son is drinking, and they find him at the gate in the morning. At that point in time, take the hard measures. Take the hard measures. Discipline people. Use the reward system to correct a wrong. If they are bent, from where they are bent, break it off and let's start again.
You talked about punishment, and in trying to restructure, do you recommend that, for example, if a leader, you've been having your individual weaknesses and now you want to style up and transform, should you start from a clean sheet by terminating whoever has observed you in the other old form so that you start with a new team?
That is such a funny question. Because you see, you've already created a culture. Yeah? And when you culture, they will tell you any day culture eats strategy for breakfast. No matter how much strategy you introduce, the culture has been set. And so what the leader needs to know, what leader needs to do now is to tackle the culture. It's never too late to learn. As long as there's breath in your body, you're going to have an opportunity to learn. All of us will keep learning until the day we breathe our final breath. The only thing that will stop you from learning is you refuse to learn. And so from that moment, you have to take responsibility of what you have done. It's you who created the culture. You set the tone such that there was a level of indiscipline. What do you begin to do as a leader? You don't start on the outside, you start on the inside. Check yourself first. Go and see what were the gaps on the inside of me that created this. Am I not confident as a leader? Did I want to be liked so much that I won't let anything go? What is it? I did not define my leadership strategy or principle. So when you go and you have time with coaches, you have time with consultants, they're going to point out for you these weaknesses that you need to address. They're going to give you the tools and strategies that you need so that it can equip you as a person. So you equip yourself first and get yourself to a level where you recognize I was wrong. This is where I went wrong. Now then you begin to tackle the systems. What are the systems that I let out? And so then you go back to the people and you have to discern two things for you. Who are the toxic people? Who are the people you can still work with, right? And so when you start to work with the team, you start with developing the culture. You don't necessarily start with systems, but again, it also depends on the kind of organization, because the bigger it is, the harder it is to transform. In truth, it is. A big institution is a big animal. It is. It's like Uganda. You ask the president to transform it in a day. It's insane. It's an insane task. So what do you do as an institution or as a family person? You start with the culture. Now, you may not employ one particular strategy, because for some people who are toxic, you need to cut and let it bleed out. Cut that artery and let it bleed out. So cut it off and let them go. Then there are people who you can try and bend back, work with the culture. Then there are those who are completely off, punish. So you start to now put structures depending on the kind of people, because you need to sort out for yourself, what do I have left in this bunch? Do I have who I can mold? Do I have toxic people I need to cut? And then do I have people we can bend back with punishment? And I think that your approach has to be a wholesome approach so that you're also serving. And again, in truth, people matter. And so at the core of everything that you do, make sure you are catering for the people, because a good leader cares for people.
In a minute, what are your closing remarks?
All right. Discipline is a learned trait, but it's also the hallmark and the benchmark for good leadership. Nobody is going to be a better leader than the way they're able to discipline themselves and also to build others in discipline. And so even as the generations come and the generations go, this is a trait that never goes out of style. It's something that we need to work with as leaders and also to inculcate in the next generation. And if you want to rise to a level where you are not forgotten and you are actually a person of influence, be disciplined at all that you do.
Thank you so much, Diana. Dr. Patricia, as we wind up, in the morning as we are talking, someone said, Dr. Patricia caused some relief to the speaker.
Is that so?
Because it is your name that is highlighted. And thank you for causing relief.
Dr. Patricia Achan Okiria is just doing her job and within the law. But I wanted also to give my parting shot.
Please do.
I heard Diana talk about toxicity. I think it is time for us leaders to examine our lives and weed out toxicity.
Yeah.
Let us be plain and down to earth and open and transparent. Because we have learned today that discipline and consistency are the integral qualities of good leadership. let us inculcate this discipline in our lives so that we can be better leaders. Because leaders who embody some of these traits of discipline not only inspire trust in people, but they also inspire confidence. They build confidence, but they also drive their teams towards success because they're maintaining that consistency in the way they do their things. They're maintaining focus, they're achieving goals, and they're able to cultivate a positive work culture. So the most important thing is for us to deal with toxicity. Diana gave the examples here with the way people behave in the roads, with the way they behave in workplaces, being disrespectful, attacking one another, backstabbing. That will not take us anywhere. Let us deal with the toxicity and change. Recently, you were talking about AYF. That was the topic. Toxicity. We have gotten to a point where even fellow Christians stab one another in the back, fight one another. But can't we sit at a round table and create a good work environment and work together in harmony? Dealing with toxicity. As leaders, we need to promote discipline and consistency. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Patricia. Thank you so much, viewer. Wow. Thank you so much once again, and to the entire team. I've worked with Brinko, I've worked with Norman, Jimmy, Jonan. I mean, very many people putting things together to see that you have this image. From the entire team, it's a good night. Tomorrow is Friday, Parenting with Claire Bwenge. Please come back and watch.